My family handed me a notarized breakup letter during my promotion dinner, then I found the forgery. Hi, I'm Bruce, 31, and on the night my boss toasted my promotion, my family handed me a notarized breakup letter like it was dessert. White tablecloths. Low lighting that made everyone look like an IPO. I'm in the good Navy suit, the one that says, "Trust your money," with my boring tie. The waiter leans in with a solemn, "Congratulations." Mom dabs at her eyes for the pre-cry, Dad clears his throat like an off-brand judge, and my brother Dylan angling his phone for a candid because authenticity needs 3 takes. From the whole family, Mom says, sliding a thick cream envelope across the table with the reverence of a christening. My name on the front in my father's neat courtroom letters. Dylan whispers, "Camera up," like he's calling action. I practice the LinkedIn smile, grateful, humble, kissed by burnout and grit. I open it. Disowned looks colder on legal letterhead than it sounds in a Netflix script. Bullet points. Conditions. A list of gifts and supports that were never rendered, framed as debts I owed to the air they breathe near me. A paragraph. Severing familial ties. Signed by both parents. A notary stamp tilted like a bruise. Somewhere behind it, Dylan's front-facing camera is catching my pores at 4K. Smile. He breathes. Hard Truth Series. I don't smile. I fold the papers back into the envelope, lay my napkin down like a truce flag I never agreed to, and stand. "Bruce, don't be dramatic," Mom says, already on episode 2, the overreaction. "Just take it," Dad adds, bench gavel voice, as if we're concluding a meeting. A couple at the next table freezes mid-bread. The waiter becomes a statue holding a tray like the crown jewels. Dylan's phone tilts for my walk-off shot. I nod, tuck the envelope inside my jacket, and walk out into air that stings clean. No shouting. No scene. Just the soft click of the restaurant door and my heartbeat doing metronome duty in my ears. Here's what no one at Table Theater understood: the surprise wasn't the letter. Surprises run on ignorance, and I'm fresh out. The surprise happened weeks earlier, at 8:12 p.m., when a loan officer with a kind voice called to confirm your willingness to guarantee your brother's consolidation. My signature, apparently, had learned to forge itself. That's when the math of my family turned into a lie with my name on it. That's when I started selling something I knew they thought they owned. Not stocks. Not my car. Not anything you can insure. The script says I should rage. That I should march back in and deliver a speech about blood and boundaries and a lifetime of being the ATM with feelings. But I'm a stockbroker. My religion is exits. Cut losses before they metastasize. Don't fall in love with positions that don't love you back. So I keep walking. My shoes click a ledger across the pavement. The envelope is warm against my ribs. Streetlights flare on like witnesses. Dylan posts fast, he's good at speed, bad at substance. A piano track over my back as I step out. Caption: when success splits a family. Comments bloom. Bro, stay strong. He changed. Money makes people cold. Sure. Or maybe money just makes boundaries visible. I get to my apartment and put the letter on my kitchen counter like a specimen under glass. I make tea I don't drink. Then I do what I always do when Chaos shows up in costume. I open a spreadsheet. There it is, the quiet biography. Dates, amounts, stated reasons, actual reasons. Dylan's overdraft at 22. Bridge loan at 24. Emergency rent at 26. One-time pivot at 28. Zeros multiplying like rumors. I add a new line. Unauthorized guarantee attempt. $62,900. Reason: because he could. The phone buzzes itself hoarse. Mom oscillates between elegy and lecture. Dad texts, "Facts don't change because you're offended." Dylan is a carousel. Bro, narrative control, pride is expensive, don't cry later. I don't answer. I draft an email to compliance again confirming the forgery report. I put the envelope beside the kettle. I look at both and think one is heat, one is pressure. Neither scares me anymore. The next day, HR pings. Anonymous tip alleging insider trading. It dies in 11 minutes because I already told the truth when it mattered. Funny how people think fire spreads faster than sprinklers. At my desk, screens bloom to life. Markets don't care that I just got evicted from my family on camera. They care about numbers, discipline, the willingness to say no at the right time. I buy what needs buying. I sell what needs selling. I hold nothing that confuses closeness with control. That night, I take the letter out again and read the paragraph about emotional negligence. Like it's satire. It is. Then I remember the waiter, frozen with bread. The couple pretending not to look. My mother's voice calling me dramatic while her favorite son filmed me for engagement. Here's the hook: since everyone loves a twist, they think the envelope was the ending. It wasn't. It was my receipt. They had no idea what I'd already sold. The morning after that dinner, I woke up before my alarm. My apartment was silent except for the radiator ticking like an old metronome. I sat at the table staring at the envelope again, the kind of stare you give a ghost when you finally realize it's not going to disappear on its own. You'd think anger would show up first, but what arrived was something cleaner: clarity. I wasn't their son anymore. I was their storyline, and now they'd written me out. Fine. Let them have the narrative. I'd take the life. At 7 a.m. my boss called to say the firm was hosting a private dinner to celebrate the promotion. I said yes because it meant free food and a reason not to think about lamb and lemon cleaner. He told me to bring family if I wanted. I almost laughed. "They're busy," I said. By mid-morning, Dylan's video had hit 100,000 views. The thumbnail was me mid-blink, looking like I was calculating the stock price of regret. Title: When Success Turns Your Brother into a Stranger. The piano track again, because guilt sounds better with minor chords. Comments like wildfire. That poor guy. Money really corrupts. And my personal favorite. At least he had the guts to walk away. I muted every notification. Then I opened my firm's secure account to pull something I'd been quietly building: an asset log. My parents didn't know, but years ago when Dad first asked me to move money around for Dylan's startup, I'd made a folder called Family Liabilities. Inside it, every transaction, every bailout, every temporary loan that never saw daylight again. Neat columns. Cold math. Proof. When you grow up being useful, you learn to document pain like you're doing taxes. By noon, Mom called from an unknown number. I answered because I wanted to hear what version of the story she was telling herself. "Bruce," she said, sweet like a sugar packet before the poison. "We didn't mean the letter. It was a statement of boundaries." "Boundaries usually go both ways," I said. "You can't just walk away from blood." "I didn't," I said. "It walked away from me." Then she said it: the family anthem. "Don't let success make you arrogant." The phrase hit like muscle memory. Translation: do what we want, but don't look like you're enjoying it. That night, I ordered takeout and ate at my desk, screens lighting my face. My reflection looked like someone in recovery from permission. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the family's lawyer officially confirming the disownment. Real stationery. Real signatures. Real absurdity. I stared at the embossed header: Fisk and Fisk, attorneys at law. My father had literally hired his own firm. That was new. The next Sunday, they called again. "Dinner at 6, Mom said. "We'll talk it out. Bring the paperwork so we can review terms." Terms. Like love was a lease. I said no. She said, "You can't mean that." "I can," I said. "And I do." That silence after a clear no? That's the sound of an ecosystem realizing its host has left. Monday morning, I went back to work. The market opened, clients called, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was drowning while smiling. But by Wednesday, Dylan escalated. A new video. Family versus finance when loyalty has a price tag. My name wasn't spoken, but my story was all over it. Comments poured in like a courtroom verdict. I didn't respond. Instead, I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. He read the forged document, nodded once, and said, "You're in the clear. They're in trouble." Still, that night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Dad's face when I was 16, showing me his messy spreadsheets, saying, "Men handle money. Boys count it." Funny. I'd done both. And now, finally, I was done counting for everyone else. Sunday came anyway, because it always does, no matter who you've cut out of your life. I woke up to 6 missed calls and a voice message from Dylan that started with fake concern and slid into rage. "You really gonna let Mom cry like this? Bro, people think you're heartless. That's your brand now, huh?" I didn't reply. I made coffee, sat by the window, and thought about something I'd told a client once. The market doesn't punish emotion, it punishes denial. Maybe families work the same way. At noon, a delivery arrived. Cream envelope. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside, a polite, invitation, to mediation. My parents wanted to resolve familial misunderstanding amicably before legal escalation. It was so corporate it almost made me laugh. They were trying to sue me for being done. I drove over that afternoon anyway. Not to make peace, just to end the noise. Their house looked exactly the same, down to the ceramic angel on the porch that Mom said watched over us. It hadn't done a great job. She opened the door smiling too wide. "Bruce! We can fix this." Behind her, Dad crossed his arms like a warden, and Dylan hovered with his phone half raised, pretending it wasn't recording. "No cameras?" I said. "Why are you afraid of the truth?" Dylan smirked. "I'm not," I said, walking in. "That's why I brought receipts." We sat in the living room, the one that always smelled like lemon polish and control. I put the spreadsheet on the coffee table, paper edges sharp as knives. "These are the transfers I made to Dylan over the last 10 years. I said. "Amounts. Dates. Reasons. It totals more than $60,000. I never asked for it back." Mom blinked, offended by arithmetic. "That's family, Bruce. You don't keep tabs on family. Then why did you notarize disownment?" Dad leaned forward. "We gave you everything. You gave me guilt wrapped in obligations," I said. "I gave you money." Dylan scoffed. "You act like you're perfect. You forged." "Stop," I said. "You forged my name." The room went still. Mom looked at him, confused. "What?" I slid the printed copy of the consolidation loan across the table, his handwriting sloppy on my counterfeit signature. "The bank sent me this. Legal has the original. That's fraud." Dad stood up fast, voice booming. "You watch your mouth." "No," I said quietly. "I've watched it long enough." The quiet after that wasn't silence, it was implosion. Mom tried soft first. "We did what we thought was best." "For who?" I asked. "For all of us," she said. "For Dylan," I corrected. He was red now, voice cracking. "You think you're better than us?" "No," I said. "I just stopped mistaking endurance for love." I unfolded the disownment letter and placed it on top of the pile. "You wanted it official. Let's make it mutual." Mom's eyes watered, not regret, just disbelief that I wasn't following the script. Dad's jaw worked like he was chewing gravel. Dylan muttered something about lawyers. I stood. "I'm not here to win," I said. "I'm here to withdraw." Then I gave them one last gift, truth delivered without interest. "You didn't just lose a son who pays. You lost the only person who ever kept records." And I left. Outside, the air hit like a new climate, thinner, colder, cleaner. My phone buzzed with the first of 100 messages. I didn't check them. I walked to my car, sat still, and felt a relief so quiet it could almost be mistaken for peace. The next morning, I woke up in that rare silence that follows an explosion. No calls, no messages yet, just the hum of my fridge and the city waking up 2 floors below. I half expected guilt to show up like it always did after family drama, but instead there was stillness. By 10, the noise began. Mom's messages came first, paragraphs of emotional algebra. "We didn't mean it that way. Your father's blood pressure is up. You're not being yourself." She attached a photo of the roast from last night, as if gravy could fix fraud. Then Dad's text arrived. "Grow up. Handle things privately, not through lawyers." Dylan's was a voice note full of profanity and hashtags for a show he hadn't even titled yet. I muted them all. That afternoon, HR emailed me. Someone had filed a report alleging unethical trading behavior. Anonymous, of course. I'd already disclosed everything about the forged signature to compliance weeks ago, so the investigation died faster than it started. 11 minutes. That's how long it took the truth to hold its ground. Still, I felt that old twitch, the reflex to fix everything before anyone got uncomfortable. It's hard to stop being the family's firefighter. You forget you're the one who keeps running into burning rooms they lit themselves. At work, my boss stopped by my desk. "You look lighter," he said. "I finally paid off a bad investment," I said. He nodded like he got it. Maybe he did. That night, Dylan's next video dropped. Title: "My brother tried to destroy my career." Subtlety was never his thing. He blurred my name but left enough clues to make sure the mob found me. The comments section became a blood sport. "He's jealous. Classic corporate snake." One viewer suggested a boxing match for charity. I didn't watch it twice. I just saved the link, forwarded it to my lawyer, and shut my laptop. Then I did something I hadn't done in years: nothing. No crisis management, no counter-narrative, no drafting responses. I made dinner, real dinner, salmon, rice, something green, because Aunt Ruth's voice lived in my head saying, "Fiber keeps you humble." I ate it standing by the window, watching the city glow like it didn't care who hated who. At 11 p.m., Dylan texted again. "You'll regret this when the brand pops off." I typed back, "Maybe. But at least the brand won't own me." Then I blocked him. I slept through the night for the first time since that restaurant. When I woke up, there was a letter waiting under my door. My lawyer's office confirmation that the forgery report had been filed. Short, factual, and personal. But in that crisp legal language was something my family never gave me: acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy. I stared at the paper and realized something simple, something stupidly powerful. The thing I'd sold wasn't my stocks or my car, it was my role. The dependable one. The background character. The fixer. Gone. Off the books. And as I folded the letter and put it away, I laughed quietly. Because for the first time in my life, my balance sheet was clean. The following week was almost eerie in its calm. No explosions, no midnight guilt calls, no "we need to talk" ambushes. My apartment felt too quiet at first, like I'd stepped out of a concert and my ears were still ringing. That's what happens when chaos has been your soundtrack. You mistake peace for absence. Work filled the silence. Numbers never yell, never guilt trip, never cry on camera. They just tell you whether you're right or wrong. I could handle that. I even caught myself humming one morning, which startled me enough to laugh out loud. By Wednesday, my mother broke the ceasefire. A text with a photo of the family group chat. "See? We're all talking again. You can come back whenever you're ready." I stared at the screen and wondered if she truly didn't understand or if she understood too well and just didn't care. Thursday, Dylan tried a different tactic: an apology live stream. He looked teary, the thumbnail black and white, title: "Owning my mistakes." The first 3 minutes were almost convincing. He talked about toxic cycles, about how he forgave people who wronged him. Then he dropped it. "Some people can't handle being replaced as the favorite." I didn't watch the rest. I forwarded the clip to my lawyer with the subject line: "More free content for discovery." That evening, Aunt Ruth called. She's the only one in the family who never weaponized guilt. "I heard things got ugly," she said. "They got documented," I said. She laughed softly. "Good. I always said you'd be the one to write it down." We talked about nothing important for 20 minutes: groceries, her neighbor's cat, the weather. When she hung up, she said, "Remember, a no is a full sentence. Don't explain it to people who pretend not to hear." That sentence sat with me like a stone I could finally stand on. Saturday morning, I went for a run. Cold air, steady rhythm, no headphones. Just the sound of my own breathing, which I realized I hadn't really heard in years. When I came back, I made eggs and coffee and didn't check my phone until noon. There were dozens of new messages, all from family numbers, all variations of the same script: guilt dressed as reconciliation. I deleted them without reading past the first line. It felt like closing tabs that had been open since childhood. That afternoon, I opened a new document on my laptop. Title: Boundaries Ledger. Not a revenge plan, not a manifesto. Just a list of what I would no longer spend energy: forgiveness, explanations. I typed the first entry: "I do not fund anyone who films my pain." It looked small on the screen, but it felt enormous. I saved it. Backed it up twice. And for the first time since the disowned dinner, I felt like I wasn't reacting to their story, I was writing mine. 2 weeks later, the storm tried to resurrect itself. That's how these people operate when they lose control: they test the lock. It started with a letter, same expensive paper, different tone. My parents' lawyer this time. After reflection. Offering to rescind the disownment. The phrasing made me laugh, like they'd accidentally unsubscribed from their own son and now wanted to rejoin the mailing list. It was signed, "With affection and renewed respect," which was about as convincing as a phishing email. I placed it next to the original and labeled the folder "Family Documents." A museum exhibit of delusion. Then came Dylan's text. "We cool?" Just that. 2 words. No punctuation, no apology. The gall of someone who'd live-streamed my humiliation, asking for peace like it was a brand collab. I wrote back. "No. We're done." He called immediately. "Bro, you don't mean that." We can help each other. You talk finance, I talk growth mindset. Viewers love brothers with opposite energy. I almost admired the audacity. You don't see me, I said quietly. You only see usefulness. There was a pause. So, never? He said, small again, like the kid he used to be after breaking Dad's windshield with a baseball. I hope you figure yourself out, I said. But I'm not your ladder. Then I hung up. Days turned into weeks. The calls slowed. The messages stopped. The silence didn't feel empty anymore, it felt earned. I started cooking real meals instead of living off caffeine and takeout. I took long walks without headphones. The noise in my head finally thinned out enough to hear my own thoughts. At work, things were steady. I wasn't chasing validation anymore, which made me better at my job. One morning, my boss said, "You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes anymore. Whatever changed, keep it." I smiled. I downgraded some liabilities. On weekends, I read. I lifted weights. I bought a small citrus tree for the apartment. My therapist once said healing isn't cinematic, it's repetitive. He was right, it's brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, keeping promises to yourself until that becomes your new default. And in that rhythm, something clicked. I hadn't just walked away from a toxic family dynamic. I'd sold off the illusion that endurance equals loyalty. That surviving something means you owe it gratitude. I didn't need closure from them anymore. I'd already given it to myself. By month's end, life had settled into a rhythm that felt foreign at first, and then strangely addictive. Mornings were just mornings, no guilt, no emergency calls pretending to be love. I'd go for a run, make breakfast, answer a few client emails, and realize halfway through the day that no one had demanded an apology from me yet. It was intoxicating. Then one Tuesday, my firm's pro bono team sent out an internal invite. Financial literacy workshop volunteers needed. Normally I'd ignore it, but something about teaching other people how to protect what's theirs hit different. I signed up. Saturday, I stood in a community center basement, whiteboard marker in hand, explaining credit scores to 20 people who actually wanted to learn. I said sentences I needed to hear at 19. A budget isn't control, it's clarity. Boundaries are financial too. A woman in the back raised her hand. What if the person ignoring your boundaries is family? The room went still. I smiled. Especially then, I said. They laughed, the kind of laugh that says we've all been there. And in that moment, something shifted. For the first time, the story wasn't about what was taken from me, it was about what I'd learned to keep. After the workshop, a guy about my age stopped me in the parking lot. "You talk like someone who's been through it," he said. "Yeah," I said. "Family bankruptcy. Emotional, not financial." He grinned. "Any advice?" "Track the asks," I told him. "Start with one no. It'll feel awful. Do it anyway." Driving home, the city looked softer. My phone buzzed, another text from Mom. "Sunday dinner at 5. Your seat's still here." It used to be a hook. Now it was just data. I typed back. "No, thank you." No speech, no justification. Just a clean answer. The next day, Aunt Ruth called. "Your mother says you're being distant," she said. "I'm being peaceful," I said. She laughed. "Good. Don't let anyone confuse those two." I hung up, watered the citrus tree, and realized the air in my apartment smelled different, lighter. For years, I'd thought healing meant confrontation, standing in the same room until they finally saw me. But it doesn't. Healing is leaving the room and closing the door without slamming it. It's realizing quiet isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of dignity. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need their applause to hear it. I'm Bruce, 31. I'm a stockbroker. Not the family's emergency fund, not their villain, just a man who learned peace is profit. My parents still host dinners I don't attend. Dylan still films apologies I don't watch. I filed their letters beside old tax forms, archived liabilities. My life now looks ordinary, clean sheets, steady breath, texts with Aunt Ruth about citrus trees. But that's the miracle. I finally stopped financing case. Love without debt, quiet without fear. My balance is even. My account is closed.